Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Last year I made a boss ranking video for Ori and the Will of the Wisps and you guys seem to love it. It's easily my most viewed video on the channel, so I thought why not make one on another game with exceptional bosses. Sekiro is tough, we know that, and the bosses are the true epitome of the difficulty that this game dishes out in spades. So I have decided to rank the Sekiro Shadows Die Twice bosses from easiest to hardest. A quick note, this list is based solely on my own opinion, so please don't be angry if I think a certain boss is harder for me than it was for you. But let's get straight into the list. Surprising absolutely nobody, the easiest boss on my list is the folding screen monkeys. I enjoyed fighting the monkeys as the puzzle element allowed for a different element in the boss battle that we hadn't seen before in the game. As much as I found it interesting, it wasn't difficult at all, and was the only boss that didn't kill me on my first run. Yes, as embarrassing as that is, that does mean I did die to the next boss on this list. Okay, so yes, the Divine Dragon did kill me, but allow me to explain. I was a little bit confused and mistimed when to do my grapple to the electric trees, and got caught by consecutive attacks. I did, however, complete it on my second attempt without taking a hit, a trend which carried over to subsequent playthroughs. This is because the only shred of difficulty this fight possesses comes from figuring out what to do. Once you've done that, it becomes a cakewalk. Climb the trees and perform a death blow to kill the little dragons, grapple to the electric tree and perform a lightning redirect, rinse and repeat. It's a wonderful fight in terms of spectacle, but it's not very hard, meaning it slips down just above the folding screen monkeys. I've decided to group all three Ganesha fights into one entry because they're all mostly the same. I am going to come out and say it, Ganesha is my favourite fight in the game. There's just something about the sword slashing, masterful parrying back and forth action that exemplifies just what Sekiro excels in. Sure, I love the other boss fights as well, but I feel that Sekiro is at its best when it's masterful warrior against masterful warrior, and Ganesha's fight is the epitome of that. There's also the feeling of the rivalry between Wolf and Ganesha, and a good boss battle is always elevated by strong story reasons for the fight taking place. Ganesha is the make or break point for most players, as he teaches you to master the parrying mechanic, something that you will need in order to beat the game, and overcome the more difficult bosses on this list. I don't feel like Emma is necessarily too easy, but I can't place her any higher on this list given that I only died to her once. I beat her on my first try, and since she precedes a much more difficult boss, I ended up fighting her very often, which meant I learnt her moveset and learnt how to counter her with very little difficulty, and after the fifth attempt I was killing her without even taking damage. You could just dodge past her attacks and then hit her with a double Ichimonji, butchered, and get the posture death blow with ease. She isn't supposed to be hard as she comes directly before one of the most difficult boss fights in the game, but since I mastered her pretty quickly, I think that I can't put her much higher than this. Most of the difficulty that Gyoba exhibits comes from him being the first boss that you come up against, with you not really having fully gotten to grips with the combat system combined with your extremely small health bar, meaning that Gyoba will give most players a really tough time on their first playthrough. I emphasise first playthrough because once you come back on New Game Plus, this fight just becomes a joke. His attacks are telegraphed way ahead of time, and firecrackers stun the horse with ease. With a larger health bar, and in turn a larger margin for error, Gyobu deserves to sit down here with the bottom dwellers on the list. Yes, this fight can be cheesed to an unreasonable degree, and can even be finished before she even has time to attack, but I am going to ignore that for the most part and treat this fight as if you weren't cheesing. It's still pretty easy. Apply divine confetti, time your parries, and sporadically throw down some firecrackers, and you'll build up the monk's posture with ease and get that all-important death blow. If this was a boss ranking based on worst boss fights to best boss fights, then this would undoubtedly take the bottom spot. I hate it. It's a terrible boss. I'm pretty sure I only died to it once, but my god, it's so tedious. The first phase is a cakewalk, given it's a reskin of phase 2 of the Guardian Ape fight, which is one of the easiest phases in the entire game in my opinion. But then we have our good old friend artificial difficulty popping up for phase 2. FromSoft are masters of creating boss battles. We all know this, and they must surely be aware that just adding a second enemy to the fight does not count as good boss design. Oh wait, no, they've done that countless times in previous games too. This fight isn't really all that difficult, it's just trying to separate the two apes so you can dispatch them comfortably. Not difficult, tedious. Hey, look who's back, it's the corrupted monk, except this time she's true! The only reason this fight is harder than the previous one is there's now 3 phases, and she builds your posture meter insanely quickly, so you will have to time your parry successfully. Blocking will not do the trick here. You can skip the entire second phase by grappling up to a branch and landing a stealth death blow. This is sort of the midpoint in my opinion, as I had little trouble with all the bosses below this, but a fair bit of trouble with all the bosses above. So let's move on to the hard ones, if you will. What makes the Guardian Ape harder than the Headless Ape? The Guardian Ape's second phase is the same as the Headless Ape's first phase. Well, it's simply because the first phase of this fight is absolutely relentless. I got slapped the hell up during this battle, and it took me a long time to even get to the second phase. And at the time, you don't even know that there is a second phase. You decapitate the beast, and then he starts fighting with the same sword you just decapitated him with. What the hell? It's an incredible moment in the game, and what elevates the fight is the sheer unpredictability of his attacks. Sure, you can use a firecracker, but getting close enough for it is a challenge all on its own. That, combined with his lack of sword, force you to forget everything you've learned up until this point, which makes him a relatively tough fight, especially for where he is in the game. He's fairly early on. You may be surprised to see Lady Butterfly so high up on this list, but the truth is she absolutely dominated me and was the first time I got really stuck in the game. Of course, the Lady Butterfly experience will differ from player to player due to being able to face her whenever you so choose. But little newbie me over here didn't know this, and I thought she was compulsory to progress the story and faced her when I was both underskilled and underleveled. This is where subjectivity really comes into play. I think I could go back and dispatch her now with relative ease, but my only experience with her is one of immense struggle, so I'm afraid I have no choice but to place her this high on the list. Facing off against a fellow shinobi was never going to be an easy battle. Facing off against someone with a similar moveset to yourself, who doesn't pride themselves on honour, was destined to be difficult. And it certainly is. Great Shinobi has many tricks up his sleeves, but he can be contained. Baiting him into a shuriken attack is my go-to strategy, as he opens himself up to a whirlwind slash upon doing this. It's an important fight in the plot as well, which helps to elevate its grandeur. Due to the numerous tricks up his sleeve and how easily he will slice right through you if your concentration isn't on point, the Great Shinobi Owl gets a high spot on this list. Wow, he's back already! And this time he's even more of a bitch. This time around he's armed with an actual owl that allows him to disappear and swarm towards you out of nowhere, as well as unleash a fiery barrage in your direction. You need to create distance between yourself here in order to allow yourself more time to react to whichever move he decides to use, as he has a bloody lot, and if for even a split second you hesitate with which counter you need to perform, you will be sliced and diced. Remember, hesitation is defeat. Our Father is a devastatingly difficult battle, which will push you to your absolute limit, which is why I have to put him at number 4 on the list. Calm down, yes. Sword Saint Ishin is apparently unanimously regarded as the most difficult boss fight in the game, and to many it is the hardest fight of the decade. And I can't necessarily disagree, it is incredibly tough, but I had more trouble with the 2 above it on this list, personally. Whilst I said that Ganesha is my favourite boss fight in the game, I do think that Sword Saint Ishin is objectively the best boss fight in the game. This is it, the culmination of everything you have learnt up to this point. As a final boss, this really is perfection. It tests you on every game mechanic and makes sure that you've mastered them all. The first phase is right up my alley, just pure sword slashing goodness. You see the attack that he's going to perform, and you prepare yourself accordingly and perform the correct counter. Once you finish this phase, congratulations, because now you're screwed. What's worse than fighting the most legendary warrior of all time with a sword? That's right, fighting the most legendary warrior of all time with a sword and a spear. The best strategy here I found is to create distance and force him into his spear attacks, as you can use the umbrella to reflect them back at him and gradually deplete the second health bar. The third phase is actually much more lenient, as if you've mastered the lightning direct, you can make light work of this final stage. Oh, did I mention that you have to fight Ganesha directly before this? No? well, at this point in the game you will probably be defeating him without even needing to use a gourd. Sword Saint is ruthless and is in many ways the perfect boss battle, but I died to him less than 10 times I think. The next two on the other hand, fuck this stupid fire bitch. Seriously, this boss should not be in the game. This is a Bloodborne boss in a game that doesn't have Bloodborne mechanics. I'm not even going to waste any breath on this little mug. Stupid boss. I can almost hear the anger coursing through your veins already. Remember, this is a list compiled with my own experiences with the game, and in my own experience, I have the most trouble with regular old Isshin Ashina. He is absolutely relentless in both attack speed and attack damage, and he is single-handedly the reason why I can beat Emma with my eyes closed. I can't do that, obviously. Imagine if I could though. Do you know what? There probably is someone that has finished this game with their eyes closed using a Rubik's Cube as a controller. But back to Isshin Ashina. The first phase is stupidly difficult, with him attacking at such a high speed that I just couldn't time my dodge or parry well enough. Whenever I was in a bit of a groove and got quite far in, I would mess up a millisecond and suddenly 9/10 of my health bar have evaporated before my very eyes. So the first phase is tough, huh? How can we make this harder? Let's set the goddamn arena on fire. For the life of me, I just couldn't counter this move. I knew how to counter this move, but I just couldn't do it. I would constantly disappear into a blazing mess. Eventually, I beat Isshin, but I died easily triple the amount of times that I did to Sword Saint. So I hope you understand why I had to put Isshin Ashina as my number 1 hardest boss in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. So that's my list. Do you agree with any of these choices? Please let me know which choices you agree with and feel free to shout at me for not having Sword Saint Isshin as number 1. If you enjoyed the video then please consider leaving a like as it would be greatly appreciated, and if you want to see more content from me then make sure to subscribe as I upload videos every single Friday. Have a nice day and goodbye.